My brother looked me in the eyes at my cousin's wedding and said I owed him $15,000 for loving me. 20 people at our table, music blaring, food getting cold. Carlos, my own brother, said those words like they were normal. Rosa, you owe me. I raised you when Mom and Dad died. $15,000 is nothing compared to what I gave you. I looked down at my plate, chicken mole, untouched. I could feel everyone staring. My cousin Lucia put her hand on my arm. I didn't look at her. I just kept looking at that chicken. Carlos wasn't finished. Family takes care of family. That's what I did. That's what you're supposed to do. I stood up, grabbed my purse, walked to the parking lot. I sat in my car for an hour before I could drive. But I didn't cry. I opened my phone and typed, Small Claims Court, Texas. Let me tell you how we got there. Carlos is 6 years older than me, and for most of my life, I would have said he saved me. When I was 15, our father died in Mexico. Our mother got sick. She needed money for treatment. Carlos was already in Houston, sending money home every month. He helped me finish school. When I crossed the border at 20, he let me stay with him for 3 months until I found work. He did that. I will never forget that. But Carlos has a gambling problem, and for a long time, I chose not to see it. In 2021, 1 year after Javier died, 1 year after I started at the hospital, Carlos called me. He said his car broke down. He needed $3,000 for repairs. He said he would pay me back in 2 months. I sent the money that week. 2 months passed, then 4, then 6. I didn't ask. I thought maybe he was embarrassed. I thought maybe he was struggling. That was my first mistake. In 2022, he called again. This time he said he had medical bills, $5,000. He said the hospital was threatening to send him to collections. He said, Rosa, you know I would not ask if it was not serious. I asked him to sign a paper, an IOU, just so we both remembered. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. You don't trust your own brother? I said, it's not about trust, it's about keeping track. He signed it. I gave him the money. He never mentioned paying me back, not once. In 2023, he said he was behind on rent, $4,000. He said if he didn't pay, they would evict him. I imagined my brother on the street. I couldn't let that happen. I sent the money. A month later, family barbecue. Carlos showed up in new shoes, the kind that cost more than rent. I didn't say anything, but something inside me shifted. In early 2024, he came to me with a business opportunity. He said he was investing in a food truck with a friend. He just needed $3,000 to secure his share. He said, Rosa, this is it. This is how I pay you back, with profit. I was tired. God, I was so tired of saying yes. But he's my brother. He raised me. So I sent the money. Again. By then, the total was $15,000. I had kept every Zelle receipt. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me already knew how this would end. Maybe you think I should have let it go. He raised me. He took care of me when no one else would. Does that mean I owe him forever? I'm asking because I still don't know the answer. In May 2024, I texted him. I kept it simple. I said, Carlos, I need to talk about the money. When do you think you can start paying me back? He didn't answer for 3 days. Then he texted back, I thought we were family. 5 words. That was all he said. I stared at that message until my screen went dark. 2 weeks later, my cousin Marisol got married. Big wedding. The whole family was there. I wore a blue dress. I sat at a table with Carlos, our cousins, our tia. Carlos was in a good mood, laughing. He bought a round of drinks for the table. I watched him pull out his wallet, thick, full of bills. I thought about my savings, how it used to have $18,000. Now it had $3,000. Halfway through dinner, I leaned over and said quietly, "Carlos, can we talk later about the money?" He didn't lean in. He didn't lower his voice. He pushed his chair back and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Rosa, you owe me. I raised you when Mom and Dad died. $15,000 is nothing compared to what I gave you." The table went quiet. Not the music. The music was still loud. But our table. Everyone stopped eating. My tia, Carlos's aunt, not mine by blood, but I call her Tia, she looked at me like I had done something wrong. Carlos kept going. "Family takes care of family. That's what I did. That's what you're supposed to do." I felt something in my chest crack. Not break, crack. I stood up, picked up my purse, didn't say anything. I walked out. My cousin Lucia followed me to the parking lot. She said, "Rosa, don't listen to him. He's drunk." I said, "He's not drunk. He means it." She didn't argue. I sat in my car. I didn't cry. I opened my phone. I went to my Zelle history. I scrolled through every transfer. March 2021, $3,000. June 2022, $5,000. September 2023, $4,000. February 2024, $3,000. $15,000. I opened my text messages. I read every conversation. Every time he said, "I will pay you back next month." Every time he said, "You know I am good for it." Every time he said, "I just need a little more time." I looked at the IOU he had signed in 2022. I had taken a picture of it. I zoomed in. His signature was right there. And sitting there in that dark parking lot, I finally let myself think the thought I'd been avoiding for 3 years. Love is not supposed to cost $15,000. That was the moment everything changed. I drove home. I didn't go back to the wedding. I sat at my kitchen table. I made coffee. I didn't drink it. I just held the cup. I thought about Carlos when I was 15, how he sent money to Mexico for our mother's treatment, how he let me sleep on his couch when I first came to Houston, how he taught me to take the bus, how he helped me fill out my first job application. I thought about all of that, and then I thought, does that mean he can take $15,000 and call it even? I didn't know the answer. I still don't. But I knew I couldn't let it go. The next day, I printed every Zelle receipt. I took screenshots of every text message. I found the IOU photo and printed that too. I put everything in a folder. Then I typed into my phone, Small Claims Court, Texas. My hands were shaking, but I kept reading. I learned that in Texas, you can file a claim for up to $20,000. I learned that it costs about $150 to file. I learned that you don't need a lawyer. You can represent yourself. I read everything twice. I took notes. I made a list of what I needed. Then I went to the Harris County Justice of the Peace office. I filled out the forms. I attached copies of my evidence. I paid the $150 filing fee. The clerk, a woman with kind eyes, she looked at my paperwork and said, "This is very organized." I said, "Thank you." She said, "Good luck, ma'am." I walked out of that office and my hands were shaking, but I had done it. I sat there with the form in my hand, my own brother's name in the defendant line. If I filed this, the family would never forgive me. But if I didn't, when would it stop? Have you ever had to choose between family peace and your own dignity? I filed the next morning. 10 days later, Carlos was served with a summons. He called me that night. His voice was tight, angry. He said, "Rosa, what the hell is this?" I said, "You know what it is." He said, "You're taking me to court? Your own brother?" I said, "You owe me $15,000. He said, "I raised you." There it was again, that phrase. I said, "I know, and I'm grateful. But that doesn't mean you can take my money and never pay it back." He said, "You're destroying this family." I said, "No, Carlos, you did that." He hung up. Carlos started calling family members, our cousins, our tia, our comadre from church. He told them I was being cruel. He told them he was going through a hard time. He told them I had plenty of money and he had nothing. Some of them called me. My tia said, "Rosa, he's your brother. You have to forgive." I said, "I forgive him, but he still needs to pay me back." She didn't understand. My cousin Lucia, the one from the wedding, she called and said, "Rosa, I believe you. Don't back down." That helped. 6 weeks later, we had our court date. I woke up at 5 a.m. I couldn't eat. I put on my best work clothes, black pants, white blouse. I looked professional. I wanted to look like someone who knew what she was doing. I brought my folder, every receipt, every screenshot, the IOU. Carlos showed up 15 minutes late. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He didn't look at me. The judge was a woman, Judge Linda Hernandez. She looked tired. She called us forward. She asked Carlos, "Did you borrow money from your sister?" He said, "It wasn't a loan, it was family help." She said, "Do you have any evidence that it was a gift?" He said, "We don't do paperwork in our family. We trust each other." She looked at me. "Mrs. Santos, do you have evidence?" I handed her the folder. She opened it. She looked at every page. She took her time. I could hear my own heartbeat. Then she looked at Carlos. She said, "Mr. Santos, you signed an IOU in 2022 for $5,000, and there are multiple text messages where you explicitly promised to repay. This is not a gift. This is a debt." Carlos opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The judge said, "I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff. Mr. Santos, you are ordered to repay $15,000 to Mrs. Rosa Santos in monthly installments of $300 beginning next month." She banged her gavel. It was over. The judge said I was right. But walking out of that courtroom, I didn't feel like I'd won. Carlos is still my brother. I still love him. Does that make me weak, or does it make me human? Carlos walked out of the courtroom without looking at me. I stood there for a minute. My legs felt weak. Lucia was waiting outside. She hugged me. She said, "You did it." I said, "I don't feel good." She said, "You will, later." Carlos has been paying $300 a month. Sometimes he's a few days late, but he pays. We don't talk. He doesn't come to family gatherings anymore. Some people blame me for that. They say I should have been more forgiving. They say family is more important than money. Maybe they're right. I don't know. But I also know this. For 3 years, Carlos took my money and called it love. And when I asked for it back, he called me selfish. That's not love. That's manipulation. 2 months after the court date, something unexpected happened. My cousin Teresa called me. She said, "Rosa, I lent Carlos $8,000 last year. He never paid me back. I saw what you did. I'm filing too." Then my coworker's brother-in-law, someone Carlos had borrowed from years ago, he called the court and asked for a copy of my case file. I didn't mean to start something, but maybe it needed to start. Maybe Carlos had been doing this to people for years. Maybe I was just the first one to say enough. It's been 8 months now. Carlos has paid me $2,400 so far. $12,600 to go. I work at the hospital kitchen. I prepare my 200 trays every morning. I visit my grandchildren on weekends. I make arroz con pollo. I tell them stories. I don't tell them this one. Not yet. Maybe when they're older. Sometimes late at night, I think about that wedding, about Carlos saying I owed him, about everyone staring at me. And I think, maybe I did owe him, for raising me, for helping me, for being there when no one else was. But $15,000 worth? I don't think so. Love is not a transaction. Care is not a loan. Family is not a debt. It took me 48 years to learn that. I saw Carlos once, 3 months ago, at the grocery store. We were in the same aisle. He saw me. I saw him. He turned his cart around and walked away. He didn't say a word. It hurt. It still hurts. But I didn't look down this time. I don't regret what I did. I am worth being paid back. I am worth respect. We all are. And if no one else is going to say that to you, I just did. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment. Tell me, have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? It's the hardest choice, I know. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, subscribe. I'll be here. I have more to tell. I am always here.